Good morning, please sit down. You can take off your mask, please. Everyone, you come from Katihar.
Yes, sir.
Why do you call it Katihar?
So there's one question even I had, and I tried looking for the name as to the origins, but I couldn't find a specific answer. The closest I got to my research is that some texts of the time in the 16th, 15th century, when the division actually happened, it was a kind of a drive-off name from some earlier term that we had. So there's no particular reason that I could find so via research. And that's one question I've been curious about too.
So, Aman, I find that you are born in 99.
Yes.
So you are only 22, 23.
Yes, sir.
You are very young, and I wish we could make it to the civil services in this very year.
Thank you, sir.
That will help you, and that will help the country and the society as well.
We know what challenges you face, and that's why Civils Daily follows a personalized, student-centric and evidence-based approach through our mentorship program. Every student is assigned a dedicated mentor who helps you learn and apply the strategies of our past toppers.
It has several sub-programs, prelims test series, mains test series, and the most helpful to me has been the mentorship program.
मेरा मेंटोर मुझे, मैं 3-4 दिन उनसे टच में नहीं रहूँगा तो मेरे को 4 बजे मैसेज करेंगे, तुम्हारे जो टारगेट्स थे वो तुम्हारे अचीव हुए नहीं हुए,
क्योंकि बहुत सारे स्ट्रेस आते हैं, बहुत सारी चीज़ें होती हैं, ये सब मैं डिस्कस करता था.
So I've been able to comprehensively improve my preparation with this program.
रणदीप सर के साथ रह के मेरी एफिशिएंसी बहुत ज़्यादा बढ़ी है.
मुझे ये भरोसा है कि मैं प्रीलिम्स आने वाले में क्रैक करूँगा.
So, you are basically a student of economics from SRCC. We are in a very, very prestigious school of India. Tell me, what is going to happen to Indian economy because of the Ukrainian war?
Yes, sir. So there are going to be many direct and indirect impacts. First of all, in the short term, because we are living in a globalized world where the country is dependent on many imports and exports for driving our growth. So the imports like fuel is getting costly in the global market. And also, sir, there are many supply chain bottlenecks, which is leading to a price rise. So that is going to impact inflation in general, sir. And inflation is already a domestic problem, and the Ukraine war is contributing to that. Secondly, sir, there are also many opportunities.
Are you importing any fuel from Ukraine?
Not from Ukraine, sir. We are looking for greater involvement for imports from Russia, given that they are offering.
That will happen only in future. But
yes,
currently,
sir.
Are we importing any crude from any European country?
Not to my knowledge, sir.
All right.
Yes, sir. So again, with the negative impacts, there come many positive opportunities. That because India is maintaining and playing such a balancing act, we can look for new markets because our exports are increasing. We have seen that we have reached the $400 billion target in the financial year. So we can look for new markets.
Export?
Yes, sir.
Export of what?
So because Ukraine and Russia supplied wheat to a large number of countries like Egypt and countries in Africa, they're not being able to do so now because of the war that's happening. So India and recently the finance minister at the WTO is requesting for there to be a relaxation. So
how much surplus wheat do we produce?
Yes, sir. So I'm not sure of the exact figure, but
only the surplus wheat can be exported?
Yes, sir.
So have you ever thought what is the quantity which can be exported and what kind of a foreign exchange can be earned through that?
So regardless of the exact figures, so what I believe is if we start exporting food grains, there will be a price rise in general because the farmers will have new markets indirectly.
No,
so
you see what will happen. Ultimately, all these are determined by the demand and supply. You are a student of economics.
Yes, sir.
And that means what? The global demand and supply?
Yes, sir.
The supply may be little shrunk because of war in Russia and Ukraine kind of thing. But no other country is affected. So they'll keep producing the same amount of wheat. So maybe they'll be little short in supply. But as far as the demand is concerned, it's not going to grow. How will the demand grow? Demand will keep growing at the same rate. So now let us find out what kind of a surplus are being produced by us. And all these prices are determined by the global demand and supply. So do you think that there will be an unprecedented rise in the global prices of wheat? And even if that is so, why don't you do some kind of a number crunching and find out what kind of a foreign exchange can be earned by export of wheat.
Yes.
You see, all these are basically optics. We want to show that we are great nation. We can produce a lot of wheat and we can export a lot of wheat. But as a student of economics, I thought that you would have done some kind of a number crunching. No. Anyway, I give you some thought, and you work on that and find out what can be done. What else? There is wheat and crude. What else?
Yes, sir.
On Indian economy.
So can I just take a minute to think?
Pardon?
Can I just take a minute to think?
Sure.
Yes, sir. So also in terms of bilateral trade ties, we are seeing that the negotiations between India and European nations, particularly, we are currently engaged in a trade deal with the UK, and because the Europe is now less inclined to engage with Russia in terms of trade in general, they can look for India as a potential market because we also lie at the heart of the.
So they are looking at India as a market, or they are looking at India as a supplier?
So both, sir, because trade work in two ways. And if there's a complementary economic structure where there's give and take, like we recently had with Australia in terms of the ECTA agreement, they will be willing to engage. And now we are seeing that UK is quite positively dealing or are in talks with for a trade deal. So that's is going to be one major component. And also, sir, we are seeing that the finance minister recently talked about the availability of natural gas, which is said to be a transition fuel in our climate change promises that we have made. And so close ties with Russia can possibly.
So if we are going to have closer ties with Russia, so Europe, especially the Western Europe, would be away from us.
So I think the geopolitics of our times calls for self-interest by nations, and from the looks of the global or the geopolitics, so I do not think that India can be isolated as such, because we are, as it is, playing a very balancing act when it comes to the global scenario. So they find that because India has such a large population, cheap labor, and can be a supplier of many goods, they will have to, or their interests call for them to engage with India, regardless of what the position on Russia is. Of course, there will be optics in terms of diplomacy, asking India to take a different stand. But India realizes its importance or the significance of its critical ties with Russia in terms of defense and otherwise.
No, I understand that India would like to strengthen its ties with Russia. But that would antagonize a lot of European nations.
So while that may happen, sir, India will also have some cards of advantage, which is...
India is only a big market, that's all. They are not going to get anything from India. What can India export to, say, England?
Yes.
Maybe some raw material kind of thing, but very difficult.
So and also in terms of the IT sector, because UK is a financial hub, we have so numerous back-end teams of top firms.
That will keep happening. For that, you don't require any shipping and things like that. IT is a little different volume, don't you think?
So, but
and a lot of people, they can remain in India and then they can work for companies in UK. They can work online.
Yes, sir.
And a whole lot of people, they can migrate from here to UK, and a whole lot of people are going in any case.
So, but we've seen that recently, at least the job market in the UK for Indians, the employment there is getting quite difficult because of the rules because of the visa rules and yes, sir. So that can be relaxed, sir, if we do have closer ties, and that's something on those lines was negotiated also with Australia to allow Indians move there, get visas fairly easily, and then also seek employment opportunities. So, sir, even the IT sector, despite it being very mobile in terms of the pandemic and also the war, I think so there's scope for greater engagement because there's always new projects coming in, sir. And currently, even I'm working in a consulting firm, and I see that the back-end teams.
Which consulting firm are you working?
Bain and Company.
That you are an intern over there, no?
Yes, sir. I'm a summer associate there.
You are still working as an intern?
Yes, sir. I have 1 month of contract left.
All right. Okay.
Yes, sir. So, and we're seeing that the kind of back-end teams that we have, we're working with different regions, and we're working at full capacity, and there's always scope for.
This is what I'm saying. Being in India and you are still working full capacity, that means what? It has not affected us.
So, but we also feel that we can always hire more people, create more offices, because there is talent.
Keep happening.
Yes, sir.
So that means the Ukrainian war has got no adverse impact on that. We were talking about the impact of Ukrainian war on Indian economy.
Yes, sir. So I calibrated as a very indirect approach in
What
terms
about fertilizer? You see, the main items which we were importing from that area was primarily not importing, but Ukraine happens to be a big producer of wheat. It is a big producer of some electrical item kind of thing, automobile also a little bit, and then fertilizer. So the fertilizers and then maybe some chips also. So that's a anyway. Let's move, because you are from Katyar. Can you tell me the main towns on the bank of river Ganga when you are traveling from say Gangotri to Howrah?
Yes, sir.
And the state?
Yes, sir. I'll just take a minute to
Sure.
So it was from Gangotri to Howrah. Yes, sir. So in Bihar, Patna.
Let's start from Gangotri. Na?
All right, sir. So if you start from Gangotri, sir, I think Haridwar is the first one.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Before that, any important town?
Not to my knowledge.
All right. Rishikesh.
Rishikesh. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Then, sir, if you come down to UP, then we have Allahabad, where is the.
From Rishikesh, you come directly to Allahabad?
So I'm not able to recall the exact flow in the towns.
Kanpur is such a big
So Kanpur
town.
is a place, yes, sir. Yes, sir. And then there's Allahabad, sir, which is Prayagraj now.
Mm-hmm.
In Bihar, we have Patna.
Mm-hmm.
That's on the banks of Ganges. And so I'm not able to recall the exact towns.
Okay. Ganga is a very important town.
Yes.
Oh, important river. And in class 5 or class 6, you keep drawing a map. And in those maps, you show the course of river Ganga.
Yes, sir.
Where is the origin of Ganga? Any idea?
In India, sir.
In India?
Yes. So Gangotri is the.
Ganga is not the origin. Kamuk.
So I think the Alaknanda and Bhagirathi merges at.
No, Kamuk. Ganga's origin is in Kamuk. From Kamuk it comes to Gangotri. From Gangotri it comes, and then they are tributaries of Ganga.
Yes.
All right. Okay. What do you think of Namami Gange project of Government of India? Do you think it's a successful, not successful? What is being done under that?
So Namami Gange is a flagship scheme for cleaning and rejuvenating the river Ganga.
When you say everybody talks about rejuvenation, what do you mean by rejuvenation? What is rejuvenation?
So as per my understanding, it would be cleaner banks, people going there and carrying out activities in a cleaner fashion, so that the experience of visitors there can be more can be better, sir. Because now we look at major rivers in India to be very polluted, and which is the case in reality.
So what is being done under this?
So there is we are constructing ghats, the Ganga ghats, which provides facilities for people who can visit there in terms of steps, in terms of places to. There are also structures to for people for public convenience.
But how will it help in cleaning the river? You are talking about Namami Gange project, and as you said, idea is basically to clean the river.
Yes, sir.
So how will these ghats and the public conveniences would help in cleaning the river?
So my understanding is that when people go to visit the river Ganga, they also dispose a lot of waste materials, and when you have funerals, people without any hesitation are just throw off everything they can in terms of the garbage material. So if you have cleaner ghats, facilities where there are bins, where there is kind of a nudge to be cleaner and keep the river clean, people will take up cleaner habits, or rather be disciplined enough not to pollute the river.
What else is being done? What is the major component of Namami Ganga?
So I also believe there is the idea of cleaning the river itself, because it's dirty right now. So I think collecting the trash that's flowing through the river, and also some kind of removing the desiltation so that the volume of river increases because the river is getting blocked in many places. So that is
That's
also
only for the navigation purposes. We want to make this stretch from Banaras to Patna or maybe Havra navigable. So that you have to go in for dredging, so that the boats or barges can move.
yes.
So that is different issue. I was talking about Namami Gange for cleaning. What do you think of STP? You did not mention about STP. Sewage treatment plant.
Yes, sir.
The main pollutant is basically sewage which is flowing into Ganges.
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay, my last question. What do you think of our relationship with Nepal? Are we in the right direction? What is happening? At some point of time in the past, Nepal was 100% dependent on us, and we always consider it to be a dependent country. It doesn't look like that we can depend on Nepal. So what is happening and what should we do?
So, since the past few years, the ties haven't been in the right direction ever since the earthquake and the chaos that followed, because India did impose restrictions on Nepal in terms of movement of fuel, movement of people. So I think, as per my understanding, that was the starting point where there was a thaw in relations, and then Nepal got closer to China in terms of foreign investment.
So
China.
do you think that our decision or our policy of not supporting Nepal and Nepalese population when there was a crisis of fuel, that was wrong? Why did we support Nepal by supplying fuel?
So what was happening there was that people from Nepal, they were coming into towns like Siliguri, taking a full load of fuel at the subsidies that India provides to its customers in terms of pricing, and without paying the costs associated, they were moving out. So, sir, I think even when it comes to critical good like fuel, which is important even for India, there has to be some procedure involved in terms of.
So surely they must be following some process. ऐसा कैसे हो सकता है कि वो fuel ले जाएंगे सस्ता और बेच लेंगे? That's not possible. If you buy something from India, you have to pay the taxes. Only then you can take it to Nepal. But we put block it to that movement of fuel.
So because India, the stand was that because inflation is a issue even in India, and if there is
don't you think
easy
that
flow
it
of
was
movement,
done primarily to teach them a lesson? That if you do not toe the line of ours, we'll make your life miserable.
so I'm not sure if that was the stand, but that shouldn't have been it.
Okay, Aman, thank you very much. My introduction is over. I'll request
Yeah.
colleague to take over.
So you are economist.
Yes, I'm studying this one.
Okay, good.
He's a consultant with Bain.
Yeah. Then second, you had schooling from Delhi,
Yes, sir.
Modern school.
and you have addressed everywhere in Bihar. You have never addressed yourself that you are in Delhi. Parents, where are your parents now?
Parents are in Bihar, sir.
In Bihar.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and you have schooling in Delhi.
Yes, sir.
How come it?
So I was put in a hostel in class 2, first in Siliguri, and then I moved to the hostel of Modern School, Barakamba Road in Delhi, and then I've been in DU all along. So
How did you come to Delhi directly for the schooling? Is it the boarding or you stayed in a house?
in boarding all my life, sir.
In the boarding?
Yes, sir.
So your parents both are businessmen, parents, mother and father?
Yes, sir.
What business they are doing at the moment?
So my father has a brick kiln. He's in-
Brick kiln?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And my mother's into the direct selling business at homes, where she runs a boutique. A
Boutique.
small, yes, sir.
Okay. Did you read today's Times of India?
Not the Times of India, sir.
Not. Okay. India want to be a friend of West, but cannot leave Russia. What is truth behind it?
Yes, sir. So 90% of our defense imports are dependent on Russia directly or indirectly. And also, when it comes to the Security Council, it is Russia that's always been supporting India's stand and not letting others run over India in terms of whatever issues were raised. So India realizes that because our relationship with Russia has always been critical in terms of geopolitics, we cannot isolate Russia as such. And so defense is again a very vital component, and India needs that to support its borders. And probably also that's when it comes to the Chinese issue, India feels that Russia can play a moderating role. Or India would hope so that because Russia-China ties are growing. And the RIC can probably be a coalition where there can be some sort of balancing act for India, sir. That's why, sir, India is not willing, or India shouldn't isolate Russia when it comes to the sanctions from the West.
So both way, it is Russia for defense also and to counter China against India.
Yes, sir.
Is it true? Because China is having a large borders with India and has some striking issues. So to counter that, we require Russia. That is the point, basically.
Yes, sir. So
that is the point.
Yes, sir. That's
why do we want to friend of West? Then we have Russia with us, and always it is Russia for more than 80% of the funds and defense. Then why do we need West?
So because India still realizes that the economic powerhouses are still in the West in terms of the US and the Western European nations. And that's where, going forward, our markets and our economic interests lie. And also that's the major bodies like the World Bank, IMF, they're all some sort of Western institutions only. Mm-hmm. And when it comes to the Indo-Pacific, China, the West is also not very optimistic about China's role going forward. So, sir, it's the various convergence of interests that lead us to cooperating with the West as well as Russia, sir.
Okay. Adani has said just few days back, there will be no poor after 2050. What is that? Do you have some idea about it?
There will be no poor.
There will be no poor in India.
So I don't know the exact context in which he made the statement, but my understanding might be he might be referring to maybe the bare poverty numbers, that we might have enough growth to maybe lift Indians out of the mere basic minimum poverty line. That might be the concept, but I personally might differ with him in terms of the relative poverty concept. That when everybody gets richer, there will be people who will be still facing a crisis in terms of basic necessities. So, sir, in terms of basic poverty lines that we have now, he might be true. He may be right, but not in terms of maybe the larger idea.
Civil benefit, civic society, and civil benefit, they may not be up to that level, but they may have some more purchasing powers.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And recently, it is said that in BPL, we will be raising some creamy layer limits or something like that. And we have BPL section also. So why is two terms, BPL also and creamy layer, we should increase the BPL limits itself? Why shouldn't, why two different terms, BPL also and creamy layer raising also?
Yes, sir. So BPL is below poverty line, which I think is a concept in terms of the basic bundle of commodities you can afford. And creamy layer is the cutoff threshold when it comes to availing the benefits of being in the OBC criteria. So I believe the concept here is different because BPL is only for the minimum survival, and creamy layer is a approximation of the amount which should be sufficient for a person belonging to the backward classes to maybe compete with the general category.
But in general BPL, that limit should also be whatever has been fixed. That is very, very minimum, even not sufficient to a person to live with. Should we increase the BPL limit also?
So I believe we should do that because poverty is again a multi-dimensional concept. You also need to take care of health and the general happiness that people have. And this was taken note by Mr. Rangarajan in 2013 when the high-powered committee was set up, that the line that we set up in India is the basic minimum just for avoiding maybe the basic hunger level. But poverty and being poor is far worse. You need kind of a higher threshold, and the aim should be for the population to be on an upward trajectory. And this line should only be a mere optic on paper, and the approach has to be far
not realistic.
Significant. Yes, sir.
You happen to be a SARC which competitor or something like that. Okay. Is there any relevance of SAARC at the moment?
So I believe because of the thaw in India-Pakistan relations, and because there could be no summit since 2014 because of except the COVID interaction, of course, there's no in-person meeting because the two countries are not willing to trade or even have meaningful talks. The body has been blocked, sir, because there can be no meetings without the two largest players in a regional body.
Only the point is that Pakistan should not promote terror and should not promote talks also together. Now they are taking some years. One is they have almost reduced or nothing on the cross-border firing on the one hand, and they have taken some concrete steps toward terrorist growing outfits in Pakistan. Should that idea be now taken care of, because it is losing, the SAARC is losing, and in that way, we either in Pakistan and India, people are same. They have been parted, but they are same, and we are losing socially, culturally, economically, and behaviorally. So should we now start engaging or think of engaging, and the party has also changed or the government has also changed?
So I believe that would always be the approach, because given that it's our closest neighbor, if Pakistan is able to fulfill promises on the terrorism and the peaceful front, and they also signed a border agreement with us last year which promised decreasing the tensions across the border, then so we should go in for talks and probably take our economic relations to the next level. Because if India, which is aspiring to become a global powerhouse in terms of exports, is not able to export to its closest neighbor, which does have sufficient purchasing power, then so it is an indirect loss for India too. So I believe India should always be up for talks, meaningful talks in terms of terror, in terms of the entire regional outlook also. And yes, I believe the change of regime in Pakistan should be a starting point for that, sir.
China is eyeing on Ladakh on the one hand and Arunachal on the other. What is the difference between these two sides? China is not heading toward Arunachal Pradesh, but it is always an eye on Ladakh side. What is the reason?
So again, I believe it's the geopolitics of the region, because when you look at the location of Ladakh, so you have Pakistan close by, you have Afghanistan close by, and also the Chinese disturbed regions of Tibet and the Xinjiang, where you have the Uyghur Muslims. So China probably might feel that it might need to dominate that region to also access the economic corridors that it's creating, and also maybe play the balancing role of geopolitics, so that Afghanistan, Pakistan and the Tibet region is managed.
But that corridor will never be joined, because in between large part of India is there. They cannot reach to that level.
Yes. So also I believe there's some sort of muscle showing, because China sees India as a rising power, and it needs issues to probably feed on to show that it is the dominant power, and Ladakh happens to be one such issue, sir.
Yeah, it is because low population over there. So whenever it comes, notice comes very late, and in other part people are there, so everybody knows what is happening. So,
Aman.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So Aman, you must have read that UGC has come out with a revised framework for admission to undergraduate courses. So what is the underlying framework of the new system?
So the new system, which is called the CUET, it promises that we move away from the system culture of board examinations towards a common MCQ based paper, where people can have a choice as to which papers they want to take. And according to that, you will have some kind of cutoff for the undergraduate courses. So the underlying framework is that, so first you need to take the exam take a language paper, which has to be the common exam in terms of English and some other regional language that you want to choose. And and the second section is where you select the subjects that you might wish to study. So in there you have I think you have a choice of about 48 papers, wherein you choose a minimum of 2 or 3 and a maximum of 6 or 8. That's the idea. and the final section is a logical reasoning paper, which can be optional for institutions to probably consider. So the idea is that we move away from silos, that a particular student from this stream cannot move to some other stream. So the CUET might probably help address that, because wherein you're given a choice as to which subjects you want to be considered for when you are evaluated for admission to an institution, the CUET might be the beginning point of giving you that choice. So,
okay, good. So, do you think it is going to ease the burden for students, or is it going to encourage a parallel coaching industry for the entrance exam which has been proposed?
So I believe a lot of it will depend on the nature of the exam in terms of questions, because if the CUET happens to replicate the kind of board culture wherein you have rote kind of learning, that will of course create a parallel coaching industry, sir. So, but if the CUET is designed to probably examine analytical skills, which you probably gather more from schools and through interactions, then sir, I think the entrance of the coaching culture will be limited, and students will take more interest in the school. So I think it's going to be more about the design of the exam, and we should probably have a feedback culture to strengthen the design, wherein the schooling can become more important and the coaching is well off.
Okay, good. So you have mentioned digital detox as one of your hobbies.
Yes, sir.
Right. So these days we see that there is a growing culture of bureaucrats flaunting their achievements or inspections on social media, whether it is YouTube, whether it is Instagram. However, one of the qualities of a civil servant is that he has to be anonymous, right? So how do you view this? Is it logical, because it is totally antithetical to what bureaucrats are supposed to practice as a trade?
Yes. So when we look at Twitter pages right now, we do see a lot of civil servants posting about the new initiatives that are being taken up. So I believe because there's no hard kind of regulation for it, so till the time you don't breach the line wherein you maybe have political interests in mind, and you're only promoting things that might inspire other people, inspire other civil servants, or share best practices, that's I think is a reasonable approach that can be followed. But I do not think it should go as far as to there was some controversy in Odisha wherein the bureaucrats had congratulated the incumbent on their victory in the local body elections. That I think is beyond the supposedly tolerance limit, and that should not be allowed. But it's a good initiative. I think it's inspiring even for students like us when we read about initiatives taken by bureaucrats. So that I feel in my view is justified.
Okay, good. There is a term in political science called as party state. What is meant by party state?
Can I take a guess?
Okay.
So, as because I've not read exactly on that, my understanding from the terms would be that you have a country or a situation wherein maybe everybody is affiliated to a particular political party, and all our interactions or our thoughts seem to be aligned with that. So there's no scope for, I would say, implicit dissent as far as that party is concerned. So it's that broad alignment, sir.
Okay, good. So, Aman, how is fiscal deficit calculated?
Yes, sir. So fiscal deficit in simple terms is just the total expenditures minus the revenue that you get by excluding the interest payments in the past years. So the closest basic definition will be the expenditures minus what you get minus what you what you spend minus what you get in a particular year, discounting for interest payments made for the previous years.
Is it interest payments or the whole borrowing?
Yes, sir.
Is it only interest payments or the whole borrowing that we need to exclude while calculating fiscal deficit?
So I didn't get the question. Sorry.
While, as you said that from the total revenue, we need to exclude interest payments, right? We need to exclude only interest payments or the whole borrowing of the government?
So I believe the whole borrowing, sir, because that's how you get the accurate picture of what's happening in the present financial year. Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. So, Aman, you must have read that the government is intending to disinvest its share from BPCL,
Yes.
right? And however, BPCL is a pretty well-performing enterprise. It has been paying good dividends to the government of India as well. So, do you think it is the right time for the government to exit the company, or is it being done in haste?
So I believe because we're moving to the culture where the government feels that its involvement in the core economic activity should be minimum. So although BPCL might be a net positive paying body, maybe the government might feel that its potential can be unlocked in many other sectors, or maybe it can perform even better than its current potential. And because the stand is to exit from sectors which is not the business of the government, I think so that principle should be followed all along. And BPCL, in my view, sir, shouldn't be an exception because its numbers are merely profitable. Because then I think it becomes the approach should be common for the stand that it takes, and not based on exceptions because of the numbers of a particular sector.
Okay, fine. You are from Bihar, right? In Bihar, we see that the industrial growth has been muted for several years now. We don't see any major industries being set up despite the efforts of the government. The government is trying its best. So, being somebody who's from Bihar, what is your understanding that why, in spite of the best efforts of the government, industries are not yet visible in a big way in Bihar?
So for flourishing of industries, the first thing you need is the private entrepreneurship, or the people who are willing to invest and probably take up enterprises. So, but from my experience in Bihar, so the people are unwilling to set up enterprises there because they fear the law and order situation. They are not. They do not believe that even if there's a culture of culture supporting entrepreneurship at this moment, the same will be the case in the coming years. Let's say because of change in political regime or whatever may be the case. So they're willing to invest in other states. Like we have many entrepreneurs investing in Siliguri, Kolkata, but not in cities of Bihar. Particularly because of law and order and the anti-entrepreneurship and ecosystem that exists, which can only change, I believe, sir, if the government gets more involved in terms of providing infrastructure, incentives, subsidies, and strengthening law and order. So that's the entire dynamic, in my opinion, which plays out in Bihar.
Okay, so as you mentioned that entrepreneurs are wary of investing because they fear that in case of a regime change, there may be law and order issues, right? So people must also be aware of this fact. Then why do you think people tend to vote for a party which the entrepreneurs will feel that it will lead to a law and order situation, but the people are not feeling the same way? Then why are people interested to, let's say in future, to vote a party who is not able to maintain law and order in Bihar? Because people are the only losers in this case, because people will lose out on jobs and economic opportunities. So why do you think people have this tendency to vote parties which cannot maintain law and order?
So I think in these terms, because the entrepreneurship class in Bihar is very thin, so their interest does not align directly with the rest of the population. And so politics in Bihar is based on many factors. For example, caste and also the previous voting lines. So I believe because the entrepreneurship class, which is very thin already, cannot maybe resonate with the others. Their wishes cannot, their, I would say, idea of what a stable law and order situation might be for business, that cannot probably be the idea of everybody else voting. And there are, of course, before elections, you have these schemes which tend to drive in voters to vote for you. That play a huge role, sir. So, yes.
Okay, fine. So one last question, Aman. We see that in the recent years, some economists who are of Indian origin, they have won the Nobel Prize, but we have never come across a Nobel laureate in economics from India, despite having very good institutions, research is also being carried out in various areas. So, but we are not able to produce an economics Nobel laureate from India. So what do you think is the reason?
So on that line, so Mr. Abhijit Banerjee, while being
He is
from
not an Indian now.
Yes, sir.
He is a person of Indian origin.
Yes, sir.
I'm talking about people who are studying, researching in India.
So, as far as the Nobel Prize is concerned, I think it's the general ecosystem of research in economics. Maybe the availability of journals, the peer-to-peer review system that you have. So that is not so much flourishing in India right now, because you need lots of funding for conducting private research. Because research, so it's not always economical to fund researches that are based on, I would say, thoughts that do not align with the conventional thinking. So that culture lacks here, and also the institutions in the US. You have many universities which have an advantage because of their past background in research, and because people come to because the culture of PhDs, wherein you study under a professor already doing well, drives them to those countries. That's I think leads to the drain of the economists from India. And so personally, as a student, the Indian economists that I research about and the ones we read, most of them are based in the Western countries. So I believe there's a flea because of the general culture of what the US and the Western countries have to offer vis-a-vis India. So because of research ecosystems.
Okay, thank you, Aman.
Not every aspirant has an IAS uncle or a bhaiya who has prepared for UPSC to guide them. I am Sajal, and I have mentored almost 200 rankers in last 4-5 years. UPSC preparation is a long, difficult journey, and it is easy to get lost due to lack of guidance. Many deserving candidates like you are unable to crack this exam. We know what challenges you face, and that's why CivilsDaily follows a personalized, student-centric and evidence-based approach through our mentorship program. Every student is assigned a dedicated mentor who helps you learn and apply the strategies of our past toppers. And before I tell you about our offline batches, hear it from our students.
It has several sub-programs like mentorship program, prelims test series, mains test series, the current affairs programs called the Samachar Manthan, and the value addition program for prelims called Smash. And the most helpful to me has been the mentorship program.
मेरा मेंटोर मुझे सुबह 4 बजे, मेरे को अगर मैं 3-4 दिन उनसे टच में नहीं रहूँगा तो मेरे को 4 बजे मैसेज करेंगे, तुम्हारे जो टारगेट्स थे वो तुम्हारे अचीव हुए नहीं हुए,
क्योंकि बहुत सारे स्ट्रेस आते हैं, बहुत सारी चीज़ें होती हैं, ये सब मैं डिस्कस करता था अपने मेंटर से.
Within a month, our students can feel real tangible improvement in their preparation and performance.
So I've been able to comprehensively improve my preparation with this program, and I would highly recommend it.
रणदीप सर के साथ रह के मेरी एफिशिएंसी बहुत ज़्यादा बढ़ी है.
मुझे ये भरोसा है कि मैं प्रीलिम्स आने वाले में क्रैक करूँगा.
Enrollment for our Super 50 batch is open now. We'll help you achieve your dreams as we helped these rankers.
तो वहीं से मैं सिविल्स डेली को फॉलो कर रहा